seventh episode of Leadership Lens Beyond Titles. And today we have Ms. Sneha Prakash as our guest. The primary objective of this podcast is to create a platform where leadership insights meet practical HR strategy. We seek to empower leaders, HR professionals, entrepreneurs, and aspiring managers with perspectives that will help them around leading with purpose rather than just positions or titles, aligning people's strategy with business outcomes, building resilient and high performance teams, navigating complexity with clarity and confidence. The workplace has entered a transformational era. So organizations are facing few challenges like attracting and retaining talent, in fact, the right talent, building cultures of trust and engagement, managing hybrid and distributed IT teams, adapting to technological and AI-driven changes, and preparing leaders who guide organizations through uncertainty. So, as we said, this podcast will aim to nurture that forward looking leadership mindset by discussing emerging trends such as future skills, digital workplaces, leadership agility, and the evolving role of HR in shaping sustainable organizations. At its core, Leadership Lens Beyond Titles is an invitation to rethink leadership itself. It challenges the notion that leadership is tied to designation and instead emphasizes that leadership is a responsibility, a mindset, and a continuous journey of influence and impact. With that said, let's get on to our call, and we will play a short intro video of Ms. Sneha Prakash, and then we will get into the conversation. Okay, sharing my screen. Okay. Well, that was an inspiring note to see what Sneha Prakash and her experience carries. So, welcome Sneha Prakash to our episode 7 of Leadership Lens Beyond Titles.
Thank you, Dr. Arun. It's a great pleasure being here, and thank you for thinking of me over this podcast. I'm honored to be part of this. As a HR, this is what it is, right? Socializing, spreading knowledge, and speaking and socializing is the blood of our profession. So, thank you for having me over. I'm really looking forward, and I love the topic that's been taken up over this podcast.
Certainly, Sneha. So I liked one particular point from your profile, which talks about when people grow, organizations excel. And I think that's a strong principle that you carry towards building organizations and ensuring people are engaged, and there is a mutually win-win growth that is being evidently seen. Can you tell me more about this particular principle of yours?
Thank you. And bingo. I was to start with that. So that's a catchy line because we are responsible and accountable for the growth of people, right? Being in HR, not just HR, anybody who heads or manages people, leads them in an organization, we are responsible for the growth. Without that, they wouldn't feel engaged, nor will the organization grow. Right. So while we have big visions and goals for the organization, it is important that they also benefit along the journey. It is not enough if we just show them the big picture and not show any way for them to grow, because all of us need to have win-win when there is a vision to be arrived. So that way, I think we are accountable in their growth. And when we say growth, it doesn't just confine to promotions or, salary revisions or title changes. No, not those flashy stuff. I think we should make them more employable. By that, I mean we should upskill them. There should be a consistent and constant upskilling motive, behind every objective and vision of ours. If they grow, they will be happy and they will contribute better to the organization. So the organization excels.
Certainly, in recent times, I've witnessed evidently that most of the organizations are now terming their L&D as talent development team. Right, so it's not more of just learning and you develop certain skills, but it is more of how does an individual understand certain aspects and what is the need for that individual to understand that aspect and start contributing not just to business but also on a personal note, as well. So talking about that, in a general terms, when we talk about employee motivation, most of the time it is really misunderstood between perks, benefits, and other aspects. So, what according to you would be an employee motivation? Is it more about emotions or behavior or culture, or what would you define it to be?
I think it is all there in the question. It should be a combination of all three. You unplug one, it doesn't work because it starts with a psychological way, right? It's not just about the behavior of the employees, or it's not just about the perks that they provide. I think it's all intertwined. It has to start with giving them the perks, and behavior is the outcome, right? To keep them motivated, it's a chain reaction. It's not going to be just emotional or behavioral or biological. It is all put together. And that's what comes as a behavior of the employee. The outcome is the behavior. So if you want them, feeling engaged, contributing well, and feeling motivated, it starts with giving them, that emotional, environmental contribution in terms of the work environment. If we are not making that amicable, and if the environment is not cohesive enough to bring this complexity in, it is a complex process. If the environment is not supportive of that, it's not going to work. One of these three is absent, it doesn't work.
Beautifully narrated, Sneha. See, most of the times when people come to me and say, Arun, I have got this much score in my performance review, but the perk that I've received does not resonate with the score that I've achieved. So I go tell them, even if I'm going to give you another 10% or 5% more, that is definitely not going to be a motivation factor. Probably you would feel that there was something justice done to your performance score. But at the end of the day, that's definitely not a motivation factor. And again, motivation factor, as you expressed it or explained it clearly, it's a combination of multiple factors, right? How does your team support you? Whether you have a good team that you're working with, or is it only the challenges that you as an individual are expected to keep resolving? So there are a lot of other factors that plays an important role talking about emotion. And as you correctly said, the end result is the behavior of an individual. So when again, talk about that, is motivation something that an organization can create, or it is only an enabler?
Lovely question. So this is not something that we can create. The word motivation itself cannot be measured. So when it cannot be measured, it can't be created. It cannot be manufactured. There are two ways to look at it. We can either ignite it or kill it, all by our behavior. HR with a combination of the management. When I say management, the leadership, it starts top down from the CEO to the reporting supervisor, who could be at any level for the employee. They could either ignite it or they could just kill it in a jiffy. And that gets carried in the mind of the employee. That's psychological. For them to, when we talk about emotional, psychological, in all of it, there is this pinch of it in every action of ours. That's the resultant behavior of the employee, right? So I think with a good intention, if we do things, when we look at the win-win, always when there's an initiative or a change or a decision that's taken, if we look at what is in it for the employee, I think the results are better. It needs to be a win-win for the organization and the employee.
Right. See, definitely, I cannot agree any less on the points that you mentioned. And most of the times, it is a top-down approach. When the top is able to explain things clearly, set the platform on the expectations, keeping it reiterated on a multiple note, I'm sure people are really going to understand. In one of the organizations where I worked, we stopped keeping tissue papers in the restroom because those tissue papers were not disposed clearly, and it started creating a huge challenge for the entire building and other occupants in that particular building. Even though it felt as a motivation factor for employees because they felt that only by using water it may not be very hygienic, and they wanted to use tissue paper as well. We went back, we told them about the challenges, and we clearly said a no, and we explained it to employees. But that didn't affect their mindset because, from the management perspectives, from the HR perspectives, and the leadership perspective, we were all set to respond to only one point, saying, no, it is not possible. It's not that I accept to something and someone goes and meets my higher authority and they get an yes or a no. That
Yeah.
again creates a very challenging environment in an organization. And according to you, do you think that the role of a brain dopamine or a reward system play in sustaining a motivation at work?
Okay, talking about motivation again, I'd like to go back to the first point. I'll answer this question, and one part of it I'd like to draw us back to the first topic that we opened up with. So, when does anybody feel motivated? One thing that I've learned over my journey of 20 plus years is, unless you get someone involved in the process, I don't think they'll feel motivated. I'm not saying that's the best way or the perfect way to do it, but one of the ways to do it is to get them involved. So any change, like we talk about major to minor, like the small tissue paper, that could make a huge difference in the 8 hours of an employee's life in the office, right? Or big changes, that could be linked to organizational restructuring and so on and so forth, because changes are generally top-down driven. One thing I've learned is, if we involve, them in the decision making, I think they will feel more empowered, accountable, and motivated. So anything, not everything may call for a discussion, but anything to do with changes in the lives of the employees. What we generally do is, there is this weekly leads meet is what we call. When we say lead, it can be taken in different levels, but what we call as leads in our organization is the executive level. So in the weekly meets, we generally, throw these topics. Certain things could call for a discussion. Certain could just be, hey, this is FYI, that there's a change coming up. Or certain things could call for their opinion. So that gets decided on the fly. So be it big to small, changes, or something new that's coming, something that's being cut off, or some change being done. What we do is we generally spill the beans during that meeting, or we gently talk of it during a coffee. So employees feel that we have listened to them, because whenever you say something to someone, there's always this opinion and suggestion that keeps coming in. And if that is incorporated, it could be the minutest of it. That is incorporated, I feel they feel involved. I feel they feel engaged. They feel that, their suggestion is taken. They feel we listen to them, right? So all of these matter, that's the intrinsic. I would come back to that,
Right.
all these extrinsic stuff are, the perks and comp and ben and all the promotions and everything that is measurable, you give in terms of percentages or numbers. But what happens to the emotional, part of it is their opinions. They need to feel counted into everything. They need to know the bigger picture as to why something is being done. They need that psychological safety. They need the emotional connect. These
Right.
things matter.
Certainly. See, I liked one of the point where you said you go ask an employee, involve them, ask for a suggestion, you implement it. You see how effective it can be done. People feel that they are really welcomed and they are part of a bigger picture. In one of the organizations where I worked, we started getting a lot of suggestions. At one point, the management said that we're not going to go ahead because there are a lot of things that the organization has to do on bringing new businesses, ensuring that the businesses are sustained and generate more revenue. From the HR, the head of HR at that time, he was very clear that employees are sharing their inputs. So why don't we go
Okay.
look at what their inputs are, see how effective it can be incorporated. If yes, we will see what is going to be the overall impact. If not, we will go tell the employee that we're not going to do it. And we had fantastic suggestions from the employees that not just helped us to sustain certain businesses, but also it gave us an opportunity to come up with a lot of process improvements that came to the business as in improving their profitability. So at one point, after implementing two or three of these suggestions, the HR team, along with the management, we said we will have to term this initiative because there are a lot of inputs that are coming in. People are trying to help us save money that are not eventually giving us certain inputs or the result that we are looking out for. At the same time, there are various initiatives which we want people to be part of. And then the management themselves, they came up with a title called "You Said We Did."
Oh,
So,
nice.
and every quarter it is like we go back and we tell the entire organization as to how many suggestions came in, how many were incorporated, how many were not incorporated, and what were those reasons for not being incorporated. And we started announcing winners, right?
That's nice.
And then this became a global project. And from US and Manila, those teams started using this opportunity, I mean, using this particular structure, and they replicated it to their employees, and they started seeing a lot of employee involvement, employee morale improved, performance improved, and we were able to also ensure to retain those good talents, right?
Lovely.
So it definitely helped. And most of the time we talk about motivation as something like a short-term motivation or it's a long-term motivation. You see, is there any difference in terms of the timeline as short, long, on a very scientific perspective?
There's a veil of difference, right? They are poles apart. So motivation is motivation. So the meaning it carries is the same. But when you say short-term motivation, it is momentary, right? In fact, I would attach perks and compensation and benefits as a short-term motivation. What is long-term motivation is including them in the big picture, telling them what we're doing this for, involving them in all the decisions, giving them. It's not about the titles and promotions. It's about giving them that the role and the decision making authority, the empowerment. That is the long term motivation. So they feel that they've contributed to every bit of what the organization is doing. They feel justified about what they paid for. Not everybody demands salary here, right? People want that attention. They crave for it without saying it as much. And if they don't get it, they feel disconnected. They don't have clarity in why they're doing what they're doing, for
Right.
which they need to do the big picture. So what we do here is, let me give you a small example. In fact, I felt I should have added this when you quoted the previous example, of hearing from the employees. So we do something called Synergy Connect. So our organization is in the third phase. We call this 3.0. Why? Because it's a quarter a century old organization, the current one that I'm working on. So this was bought from the founder 3 years ago, and now it is in different hands. So the interim period was mainly for investment purposes that the promoters had us for about 3 years, and now we've shifted hands. I think this is a long-term move. So in the first term, of 22 years out of the 25, in the first term, the founder owned it. So imagine he would have started with one employee and he left it at 500. So you can imagine the transition. So he would have known everybody by name, face, not just the employees, but their family members and everyone, right? So that point in time, they need not have a HR or, someone to come in. There's no engagement that is needed and all of it. Engagement happens by itself. We need not give it a name at all. Right. And when the second phase happens, they were, outsiders into the organization, taking different leadership roles, and they had to actually fit themselves in, for which there were a lot of interventions needed. So that is the acceptance stage. And now we are in the third phase. So people want to be heard. So they have to get used to this transition. So what we thought was, during this phase, a lot more would have got, added to the organizational strength, right? We just call it as Synergy Connect. We wanted to have synergy within the organization, because someone who's tenured in the organization has to accept people who are, coming in new. So we wanted to blend them in. We wanted to build a bond between them. So we just picked a certain, years of experience, and we met about 1/3 of the organization and asked them, hey, What is it that's affecting you? You could just, right from organizational restructuring, opinions on organizational restructuring, to having a scented candle in the washroom, to, where to place the printer. I mean, suggestions like these came up. So imagine the kind of, freeness that they had. So what we heard among all of this was very interesting. They said, just speak to us. You don't have to act on what we're saying. Just speak to us. That's enough. So there was always this portion of people who felt belonged. Then there were these newbies, and there were these, set of people who felt that I want to be heard.
Mm.
So that is the emotional connect that we tried to build, and that was very, very successful. And we plan to, continue doing this for the other groups as well. We've been successful only with 1/3 of the organization. We made a lot of noise around it so that they open up. They're prepared, mentally, that they can share feedback of any kind. One.
Mm. Mm.
And I think your question was on, if you can revisit that.
No, it's more on the short-term, long-term perspectives that
Yeah.
people think that there are multiple ways to handle a motivational factor, because some people think it's a short-term engagement, some may think it's a long-term engagement. So, what would be your scientific perspectives around that?
Yeah, thank you for recapping that. So when I say long term, it's a big picture, right? I think we spoke of clarity on why we're doing what we're doing. So we have these quarterly town halls, and you can imagine the CEO just shares every other number that I doubt would be shared, because I have worked in a fintech and I've come to an IT sector now. So the first day of my joining here was on the day of a town hall, one of the quarterly town halls. And I was zapped at the kind of data that was shared. Whether people could absorb it or not was secondary, but there was too much of data. When I asked him, why are you sharing all of this? I don't find a meaning. And he said, I want people to be part of everything that we're doing here. A few of them could absorb few things, a few of them could not absorb few things. However, the balance is there. What I don't understand, I will try to understand from my friends. But I want them to be informed of everything that has happened here. So I think that keeps them motivated till now. Our attrition percentage is less than 10%. In fact, it was 5.
Oh, nice.
5%. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's somewhere hovering around 5 to 10. And we're already worried because 5, why is it moving to 8 is the question that we ask ourselves. What is
Okay.
it differently that we're doing that people are leaving? So that is a kind of question that we keep asking ourselves. And that's when we got more innovative and more creative. And, we just want people to know that they can come and speak anything. So my cabin, for example, I just sit in a cabin just because people can come in and talk to me. And most of the times I'm here or there. I mean, ours is an open environment. So we have a lot of, beverage counters and dry pantries and, what do you say, a lot of casual corners that you can sit and work from. So you can find me and my team sitting anywhere so that people can come and speak. And the head of the organization's door is also open. So people can talk about anything to anybody here. So that's a kind of culture that I think we need to create for them to feel, yeah, they're listened to, they're motivated, and they know the big picture. We ensure that nobody is not informed of anything. It's they shouldn't feel that they do not know what is happening in the organization. We make it a point to inform and reiterate it in multiple forums.
Certainly.
So,
See,
I hope that answered your question.
perfectly, yes. So there are multiple points that I was able to get through through the practices that you do. Number one, you already have a set of people who are well established. They know the culture, they know what, when, and how things happen. And there's a new set of people who are into the system, and there's no better way to make them feel comfortable than going and asking them, "Hey, we are there. Why don't you share your experience? What's happening with you? Why don't we have a coffee together? Let's talk about what your plans are for the next 1 week," right? It need not always be on the performance. It need not be on setting expectations. It need not be on certain official matters at all. It can also be as simple as, last movie we happened to do this. So what do you think about
Yes.
it? Right? It can be as simple as that, taking their inputs directly and indirectly and see how it can impact their entire organization. The other thing on the town hall, yes, not many times the data is understood by the employees, but again, as leaders, we still keep providing a lot of information because everyone in the organization needs to know what's happening in and around the organization. What are the challenges and where are we strong? What are the agents? I mean, what are the areas we need to focus on, and so on. All right. So these things will definitely become an integral part of every employee over a period of time. And again, the town hall or all hands meet, the objective is very clear. We only talk about what the organization is going through and where is it going to be in the next 3 months or 6 months or 1 year period. And I'm sure employees are well prepared, and they are also preparing themselves to understand certain terms, see how those data impact their role and how their role is going to create a better impact for the data that the CEO or the management can talk about. Right. So wonderful perspectives, Sneha. Thank you for sharing that. And why do high performing employees, did you actually think they lose motivation even when nothing visibly happens? Because I hear you say that there is slightly an increase in the attrition that you see. It used to be 5% and now it is 8%. I presume you do not have much of those high performing employees in that 3% increase. What do you definitely see, or have you seen high performing employees losing out their motivation, and there is no evident reason behind that challenge?
To answer various parts of your questions, yes, we might have lost one or two of the high performers in this process, but have tried and retained the others. And for that matter, every employee is valuable. We don't want anyone to go because everyone's played a role, right? There is no such thing called keyboard burners. Those keyboard burners are actually 60 or 70% of the organization. We need them for the high performers to be high performers. So they are the enablers, for such high performing organization. So yes, high performers could leave for various reasons, or people could feel disengaged for various reasons. I'm not just quoting about high performers, anybody for that matter, long standing employees. Not many fortunately have left, so I'm glad about that part. But still the 3% is concerning for me as HR, and someone who's working in an organization that is so employee centric. So coming to that, there could be various reasons. Employees do not leave their roles; they could leave the organization for various factors, and I would attribute 50% of them leaving their managers. Probably it's about someone who's facing them every day, right? They could be overtly burdening them because they are high performers, where the work is not balanced. I'm not allocating work properly, or I'm not bothered about what is being allocated to them, or I'm too micromanaging, or I don't care about what they're doing. There could be two ways to it, and probably they lack, clarity in what they're doing. Also, we do not know. Right. So if at all they feel disengaged due to any of these things, it's dangerous. So we've had a couple of discussions with them. Definitely, we want to know the reason before they leave, because we do not want another person leaving for the same reason. So thankfully, it's not any of these. So if at all they've quoted that, we've taken an immediate action, and we've kind of moving teams is not an option though, unless the culture in the team is toxic and all of it. Fortunately, ours is not such an organization. So wherever there was intervention needed, we've done it. Even otherwise, to answer you generally, I think it could be any of these reasons that could attribute to it.
Certainly, Sneha. Just to add, in one of the organizations that I worked, so we had quite a bit of unusual attrition that happened. So when we went back to analyze what could be the possible reasons for this particular project, we found out that one of the team managers or the leaders there for that particular project was trying to showcase the top performers as the leaders of the team. Okay. Right? So it was like, you perform well, you'll be treated like a king. Yeah. If you not perform well, you don't get the treatment. So what happened over a period of time was people started relating to how they're being treated. Yeah. So if you perform for 1 week as a top performer, you get that good treatment, and the next week if you fail to meet the basic expectations, then the thought process is totally different, or the kind of experience they undergo is totally different. So in these situations, we went went back to those managers, those first time supervisors. We told them every employee needs to be treated the same, irrespective of their performance. Yes, they are top performers. What you can ideally do is start giving them additional responsibilities based on their preference and their workload, so that they could start learning what it is for them to become a first level supervisor, or if they have interest in other departments, they can also start exploring the other department on a 75% 25% basis. So after doing all these interventions is when we were able to reduce the attrition in terms of that particular team that faced. But if it was not intervened, then the entire project would have become a disaster. Most of the time, one of the word that used was the culture, the team's culture, right? That sets very clear expectations, tone, and also the narratives of being a team. What is the objective? How do you achieve it? And how do you work, come together and meet certain challenges? I mean, solve certain challenges, right? With that said, what would be your thought in terms of compensation as such? I know it's a motivation factor for you and me as well. Do you think that it definitely helps motivating an employee or a person, and it also helps to reduce the dissatisfaction levels?
Compensation, I feel, is a hygiene factor. I don't think we should attach to motivation because it's not a long term motivation if it is. So I think we spoke about it previously. It's about a short term. If I'm getting compensated, wow, I'm getting a rise. I feel wow about it. But for how many days will I feel the wow? It is just for 1 day, 2 days. I'm happy when I go show the letter to my family, proud about the organization that has given it to me, that has given to me. I can't even disclose it to my friend, going by the confidentiality. So even if I do, beyond the norms, I don't think that will get carried for too long. So I feel compensation is a hygiene factor. Maybe for few days it will be motivating, then it will become an expectation. So
Right.
try giving someone a 30% within the organization because they've been a high pot, and try giving them a
Mhm.
20% in the next year, because as they grow, the percentage decreases. They would
Right.
still feel motivated. It is a respect that's a long term motivation, going by the previous question. And if compensation would be enough for a person to feel motivated, I think it is a respect that needs to be carried, going by the previous example that you gave. Bias within the team, that itself will just break the energy within the team, right? So
Right.
I feel it is a respect that matters more than the compensation. Yeah, of course all of us come for money, but that's not the only thing that can keep us motivated in the long term.
Certainly.
Respect speaks of
And
culture. Yeah.
well said. How do you think autonomy, mastery, and purpose influence employee motivation in real organizations?
Okay, talking of autonomy, I feel it's more of autonomy is nothing but control, right? Going by the synonym of it.
Right.
And mastery is about expertise. I think, what was the other one?
I mean, autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
Purpose. I think that carries the most weightage in anything. Autonomy comes in when you feel, empowered. I feel I have control over the team and all of it. Mastery, I think we need to have bits and pieces of all of this, a combination of all of this. But I think the purpose carries much weightage, for any person. So be it a big or a small role, right from a process associate to a junior engineer, everybody needs to have the purpose for which they are present in their role, right?
Right.
Every role is important and every person needs to have a purpose for the role. So I feel, uh, if we do not go by any of these, unplug one of these, it's going to be a trouble for any
Right.
employee, for any role. But I feel a purpose driven organization and a purpose driven role, a purpose driven decision carries much weightage.
Certainly. Just to add, Sneha, well, as an organization or as an entity, we talk about motivation on autonomy, mastery, or purpose. Let's take an example of a hospital where a doctor is expected even today or on a holiday to come and ensure that a surgery is done if it is really critical for the doctor to be there, right? So in those cases, there is nothing called motivation. The only motivation is the expertise that the person carries, and there is no autonomy there. The purpose, the bigger picture comes into the play.
Yeah.
They know that if they're going to spend another couple of hours in the hospital, if they're going to treat the patient really well, then there's going to be a high chance for the patient to recover better, or else the result is going to be otherwise. So even if you take an example of people working in army or military, or any other a similar field, the purpose is something that is valued on a very, very higher note. One way
Can
or
we give
the
it
other.
another name? I'm sorry I intervene, but can we give it another name? Purpose is equals to passion, because the profession that you took of a doctor or
Right,
someone in an army or navy or military, I feel they're more driven by passion than anything else.
right,
For us, it's purpose. For them, it's passion, right?
certainly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think a purpose is too small a word if I can think of, in those professions.
No, absolutely. Well, the passion goes beyond their life for someone in the
Yeah.
army, military, or air force, because if there is a war, they are not even sure that they're going to come back successfully, right? So, with that said, it's way beyond passion or purpose, because that there is something
Okay.
that keeps driving them. There's something that they feel that it is the area that they can contribute better and do wonderful things, not just for themselves but for the entire nation as such. And as you said, again, passion, purpose would definitely be can be used on a very higher note as well. And Sneha, what according to you are leaders unknowingly doing that kills motivation in the teams?
I think this is linked to, the reason for someone leaving. I take it back over there. If they're not giving them the clarity as to why they're being asked to do what they're doing, they might lose that interest. They may not open up. They may not, go that extra mile, right? They may completely feel disengaged altogether. So if leaders are not constantly engaging with any kind of a performer, it could be a low, high, or a moderate performer. Because the seasons change. A high performer is not always a high performer. High
Right.
performer at that particular level, when you kind of elevate him, probably because he's so good, he'll also take the time, he or she will also take the time to scale up there, right? So
Sure.
when the leader is not sure of what is the potential or the caliber of an employee, or what is actually, you have to read them like you're their parent, right? Like you're their mom or dad, right? When we are in a position of handling someone, I feel they are just like our child. We need to know the in and out of them. So without knowing what interests them, what will motivate them, or what is their capable potential. In fact, I've seen people just partly giving their teams, tasks. I've asked, why is it that the person is not, pushed his limits, his or her limits? Because that's the way that I learned. I grew in my career just because I was shoved with, two roles. Two of my seniors just left out of nowhere. I was in the start of my career. I handled a HR team all alone till another person was recruited. Imagine the 3 months with
Mm,
no idea on what HR meant. So I had also
mm,
just returned from my maternity leave. So when people spoon feed, I get really upset about it. I say, push them, push the limits. If the leader is not pushing the limits of the employee, not burden them, but push their limits. You know that, there is a 75% that can be assigned. Try giving them that 80 or 90 percentage. Let them do, let them struggle, but they will learn it. They will feel more important. Not to the extent that they're burdened or they complain, but we should know where to stop. But
certainly.
I feel sky is the limit. I feel if the leader doesn't know, has not read the employee well, that's where they fail. And
Definitely.
yeah, they should keep them constantly engaged and motivated, not and ensure they have the work-life balance. I
Mhm.
feel that is a very cliched word, but if they are not, given the time for their family, some time to rest, eat, sleep, and some time with their family, because that is the charging factor, right, for any human. If we fail in any of these as a leader, I feel we fail miserably.
Right. Pushing the limits, yes, that is one of the principles that I also keenly follow for two reasons. One, I strongly follow athletics because every time someone runs a 100-meter dash, it's very simple. They want to break their own records. And for that, they practice. right? So it's not trying to push yourself to do something which is not possible, or which is something which is not at all achievable. There are certain things where you can go beyond certain aspects and still do or get a better outcome. But
Yeah.
without trying it, it's very difficult for someone to say this is the best I can do, right? And
Yes.
someone says this is the best I can do, I am really not the person who accepts it. Probably I might say yes at that time, and knowingly or unknowingly I'll try to keep pushing them so that they themselves can be much aware about their own achievements, that they can do better, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm with you. I'm with you.
right. And what does psychological safety contribute to motivation and performance?
That's a very, very important question, because if someone, when we say psychological, I can also call it emotional. So if someone is not emotionally connected, I think we spoke about it enough, giving examples and all of it. If I'm not feeling psychologically or emotionally connected, or I don't feel safe, then I feel that I may not contribute enough to the organization, right? So if I'm not getting, say, for example, a good night's sleep, there are two of my organizations, the current and the previous, where I've heard, few people joining from different other organizations where they are just, given diktats, or they're not valued as a human, or they just not told the big picture. They've just been told the task to be done. And probably the managers, we spoke so much about bias and all of it, and they don't care, whether the person is able to do it or he or she needs help or support, right? Not all of us are experts in a role. At times we need help, not because we do not always know it. Probably my day has been bad at home, and I feel better, relieved when I come to work, but I might need, that softer, treatment that particular day. So I feel all this contributes to the psychological factors, right?
Mm,
How you treat someone
right.
with respect, without bias, with a lot of, confidence. I feel
Right.
all of this contributes to it, and that makes the person's day, and it has a huge impact, on someone as a human.
See, if may I add one of the points that I have witnessed, it was in one of the organizations where uh, every team or the department head would come up with a particular problem, and the location head used to help them resolve that. And after I joined the organization, the similar process was followed, but I was very curious to understand that why would the location head come into this picture, spend time, and ensure that a particular department's problem is being solved. What I did was very similar to the forum or synergy that you mentioned. I create a process called team consult. All the teams felt that sharing their problem with another department would only make them more weak, because the other department might understand what their weaknesses are and they might challenge them on a frequent basis. So the process that I came up with was every month, all the department heads would come together, and whatever problems they have, they'll bring it onto the table. And it is the responsibility of the other department heads, along with me, including me for that matter, to see what can be done to overcome that problem. It can be a quick fix or it can be a permanent fix, but there has to be some kind of a solution that we bring it to that particular department and help them overcome that. What happened after 3 months was every department started using this opportunity to come up with a better idea, a better solution to say, if we collaborate, we would be able to do things on a better note. They
Wow.
stopped pointing hands at each other. Instead, they started shaking hands and they started taking things on a very, very personal and a committed note. This made the project become more successful, and also it gave an opportunity for the department heads and their minus one to also participate, understand the challenges, and start contributing. This is still happening in that organization. The only thing was, over a period of time, the department had stopped participating, and it is only the minus one people who are now part of that particular initiative.
Oh,
Unless until you keep reiterating the importance of the department's concern, it is your participation. There is someone who is trying to support you. People again take it for granted. The psychological safety comes in when you know that there is another person who is there to help you, right?
Totally.
And
I love the transformation.
that should not be mistaken as there is always one person to help you at any given point in time,
Yeah.
right? We were able to draw that line. And again, as a HR consultant, I intervened, I went back, I told them, and in the last couple of months they've restarted the process along with the department heads, right?
Lovely.
And they kept giving excuses saying, I'm busy, I have a client meeting, there's someone here, there's someone there, but there's a common time fixed, and at that time we ensured that there are no other meetings that are being scheduled, right? And
That would have made a sea of difference in everybody's lives, right?
yes.
In fact, if I may add, there are two other things that I wanted to quote, very similar to what you mentioned. What can I do for you was the statement that you mentioned, right? So we were in a workshop, a leadership workshop, because I told you there are three phases of this organization. After I came in, there were 4 or 5 leaders who joined, and I hired about, a few more to add to the cohort. So we wanted to ensure that the leaders that are already there, are veterans. You can imagine the kind of acceptance levels between the two. So we wanted to bridge the gap even before we found any cracks in it. So we thought it would be nice to, onboard all the leaders and have a bonding kind of a leadership workshop in order to revisit our vision, our goal, many other things were covered. And that went on in for 6 months, because a behavioral change, if you want, cannot be brought in just one day. Right.
Mm.
So it first was an alignment workshop, and then a 4-day residential workshop, or a 3-day residential workshop, and then followed by regular connects for the next 4 months. So that's how long it went. So in that particular workshop, through the entire journey, we were trained to ask, what can I do for you? Forget what is it that you need from me. What can I do for you? Okay, what can I do for you is more offering than asking, what is the other way, right?
Right.
And the other example is, I feel, giving employees, ensuring employees have a good night's sleep contributes directly to the psychological safety of anybody in any organization. I started with saying that two of my team members from different organizations, and me being in different organizations in my previous job and here, two of them in different scenarios came up and told me, Sneha, thank you for hiring me. I feel I have a good night's sleep. The same sentence. Okay, and I've been in different organizations, and they've also come from different organizations. So there are organizations that aren't giving them that. They're treating them like, employees and nothing beyond. Right.
Mhm.
So I feel all this contributes to that. And a third example is, I've also been part of a hire and fire organization.
Mhm.
Today, that's been the trend because AI has come in, is what we claim, because of which layoffs are happening and all of it. But there were organizations also that just used to hire and fire, hire without having a vision on why we need so many people. Even one person matters, right? And just fire them when we feel they're not good enough, or there's no meaning for the role, or there's no need for the role. I don't think we shouldn't be playing with anybody's career. So when they have that emotional insecurity, I don't think there'll be any physical, psychological safety in the minds of the employees. We should create that.
Right.
When they're being hired, it's not, we expect that they stick with us, for a long term. And the responsibility is both sides, right? So all this contributes a huge deal in the minds of the employee.
Certainly. In fact, there's one organization that I was introduced very recently, and they have around 100 employees. I happened to meet their managing director and CEO, who's a foreigner and European. When I spoke to him about the opportunities in the market, he said, Arun, we have humongous opportunities. And as and when we get an opportunity, we outsource it to our near and dear friends who have the capacity to manage those projects. I asked him very simple, why do you want to outsource? Why didn't you do it on your own? He said, it would be a short-term project. And for that, I may need to hire 30 people. And after the project, what happens to these 30 people?
Yeah.
I don't want to fire them unless until I have a clear roadmap saying I am getting a project, and this project is going to be there for another 2 years or 3 years. I do not want to add any headcount to my business for simple reasons. It is going to bring money to me. And then this definitely gave me a different perspective on how a managing director looks at the commercials or the way certain businesses are done. It is not an easy decision to take because there are investors in this business and they will definitely keep questioning as to why this particular project was outsourced or sent to someone else, right? And they had very clear picture as to what they would do and what are their ethical values, their core values. How do they treat people? What is the kind of culture that even a visitor like me had to experience the first day when I went into their office? Right. So those are some values that differentiate an organization from good to being a great, is something that I
Totally.
strongly believe in.
Yes.
And talking about Gen Z's challenges and other factors, and again motivation. Stay, what according to you would be the motivation factor for not just the current generation, even for the upcoming generation and other workforce? The reason why I'm asking you this question is very simple. In the next couple of years, there is going to be around 5 generations who are going to work together. The
Yeah.
generation who is about to get retired, the second level of generations which we are in, the generation after us, the Gen Zs and the millennials, right? So, with 5 generations working together, what would you think to be an ideal scenario for an organization to plan its motivational factors?
Okay, that's a very insightful question. Um, okay, what Gen Zs as such expect is we need to understand their language.
Right,
Imagine if you and I have, over 20, 30 years of experience, we can imagine that we might have, children of that age who are Gen Zs today, right?
right,
And we can directly relate that to how we need to act at work as well. I don't think there's any difference between how our children would act versus, the Gen Zs are joining at work. I don't find any difference. So I feel the Gen Zs are super. First of all, giving them the credit. I
right.
think they are super clear than what we were at our age. I would, humbly accept that in the first place. They have the clarity. They do not exploit the exposure that they've got. Imagine doing that today. Here and there, we might find examples, but not everybody is exploiting the opportunities, or they exploit the opportunities again, not the exposure. Okay, so they're very, very clear. So they expect the millennials as well, the millennials or whatever you want to call the, 2000 befores. So I feel, they are not worried about, what do you say, culture, value, and those, cliched words. I feel how they're treated is what values, the most to them. They want clarity. They are averse to toxic culture. Okay. And they react immediately. I don't think
Mm,
they are patient enough. I feel in a good way it is better.
right,
They're not patient enough like us to tolerate the toxicity and live with it. I don't think they are that. And that is a very, very good thing in them. Okay. And that makes us also believe that we should not be tolerating toxicity. Why should we?
sure,
That
definitely.
patience is, unnecessary. And they want to see quick results, like, quick promotions, quick growth. Now tell me what's in my, net take home. Don't explain other things to me. I'm not bothered about what PF could give me 20 years later. They're that kind of, very, very clear people. And I feel for them, hierarchy means nothing.
Mm,
You can't expect sirs and madams. No. Even if they're fresh outside of college, they very quickly adapt to the corporate environment, the MNC kind of a culture. Whether or
right,
not they belong to an MNC or where they're hired, I feel they are happier when they are treated equal. Age doesn't matter. Hierarchy doesn't matter. They feel they have to have that purpose and they need to be given the clear clarity in what they have to. All this matters to them than anything else. And they like to be told, they like to be taken into confidence. They like to be told the big picture so that, before they could even wonder why they're doing what they're doing, they wouldn't even take up a job if they're not told what they're doing. All
right.
this is fine. Now tell me, what am I supposed to do this for? Is a kind of question that they pose us with, So all of these are very good signs. I feel we have been in the cusp to tolerating, accepting of things, even without knowing the big picture. And that is why, if at all we are not able to adapt to them, we expect the same from them. I feel we should adapt to the Gen Zs because
Certainly.
their approach is very, very clear.
Well said, Sneha. When my father joined the organization that he worked for, he had a lot of passion, purpose, and he had a lot of thoughts that he wanted to incorporate. Then came autonomy, power, managers, supervisors. They said, you can't do things differently. This is how it needs to be done. And he was like made to understand that that particular organization worked in one way that they wanted to happen. And when I joined my first organization, there were certain inputs that my father and mother gave me, saying, Arun, you need to ask questions. If you are in doubt, ask, clarify, and then proceed. But end of the day, when I started asking doubts, they said, you know how to do it. Why don't you do it? Right?
Mhm.
I asked
Yeah.
because I didn't know how to do it, but nobody clarified. I made a mistake. Uh, my manager shouted at me. Then I learned how it has to be done the correct way, and then I corrected it. And when I experience such behaviors, I tell my daughters that don't proceed if you are in doubt. Don't even try
Yeah.
to take the next step. Clarify. Make things very clear before you take your next step. And that is what this generation does. And when such instances happen uh, through one of our team members to us, that is when the acceptance becomes a little low. But again, narrating it back to the experiences that we have been through, I think Gen Zs have better clarity than what we have. They have better purpose and they clearly know what they want to achieve the next 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years, or 10 years. And more than 5, 10 years, it is for them. What is it going to happen for the next 6 months? Right.
Yes.
So it's like taking small steps, but making sure these small steps give them a better career perspective and a better engagement over a period of time.
Yeah.
With that said, we are at the fag end of our session today. So the last point that I would want to ask you is that if you had to redesign one organizational practice based purely on the signs of motivation, is there any? If at all, what would it be?
Well, I answer this in two parts. One is a measurable one, another one is a non-measurable one. So when it comes to measurable, I think I do away with the rating system. Nobody is happy with a bell curve. We can call it in different names, Arun, but I feel we are still following that in different names. We
Yeah.
have to, give people a relative, rating. We have to differentiate the good and the, bad and the moderate performers. We're just not calling it the bell curve. I feel we're giving it all nice, flashy names, and we are still doing what we're doing,
Right.
right? So, all these modern, jargons that have come in, I feel I'll do away with that and go with a, growth mindset. I
Right.
would constantly focus on upskilling than have a yearly cycle where I kind of pin an employee on where he or she stands in terms of performance.
Mhm.
I feel each team should be given separate cohorts to manage within themselves, and uh, they take care of what do you say, dissemination of who needs to get what, rather than doing it organizationally, because we tend to compare everyone and try to plug them into the curve, in whatever curve you call it. I feel I'd like to do away with that and go with focus only on upskilling. And when I say
Right.
upskilling, there are various ways to do it. We can handhold people. We can. I Training is a very very old jargon to use. I feel we should constantly keep adding certifications to them, adding value to them. That is one
Right.
change I'd like to do. And the second part of it is, if I have a genie in hand, I would try to blend the millennials and the Gen Zs. That's my wish.
Right.
I feel we are less tolerating of people. We are in HR, so we're trying to bridge the gap. Imagine people in the organization as employees. I feel they are less tolerant or less acceptable of people who are coming in. There is a senior junior kind of a mindset. I'd like to change that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well said, Sneha. It all comes back to one principle that you carry, and we also spoke about that earlier. Motivation is nothing but employees showcasing their real talent, and
Yes.
that is evident when employees excel, which again reflects on how organizations grow. That's one of the
Yes.
principles that you strongly believe and follow. With that said, we are at the end of the show. Thank you very much, Sneha. I've got a lot of insights from the experiences that you've shared, and I'm sure I would be able to use those insights in one of the organizations that I work for, or share it with a couple of my friends who are part of the HR fraternity. It has really been an insightful 1 hour. I'm not even I've not even focused on the time, but we wanted to finish it 45 minutes, but you've taken 1 hour. It has been so intensive and engaging. Thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to have you with us on our seventh episode. Thank you once again, Sneha.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure. I really mean what I say because there's a lot that's taken from you as well. When two HRs speak, I think there's a whole lot of examples that come up, and we learn from each other, right? So thank you. It had real meaning. This complete episode, and I loved. I was so looking forward to it because this is a very very interesting topic that anybody could talk of, and I'm so glad that I've contributed to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha. All the best.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye bye.